conservative new media viewers. We're here to discuss the debate that took place tonight. I can't remember what number it is now. Maybe it's like the 12th, 11th, a GOP 2016 primary debate that took place in Miami, Florida. The debate was aired on CNN television. I just want to review it, kind of share some thoughts about it really quickly. We also advise you to go and see the last video that was put up on our channel, which is of JDV discussing what he feels is the illogic and potential hypocrisy of what is known as the hashtag Never Trump movement. So we advise you to go and look for that on our channel as well. Let's talk about what we saw tonight. I think the clear winner of tonight's debate was Donald J. Trump. And the reason why I say that is I thought it was the best debate of him out of the entire primary season. There are different factors that go into scoring or kind of surveying who wins a debate. One of the most important of the factors is the demeanor of the participant. So it is not just the substance of what the person says, it is also how they handle themselves, what their body language is, what their demeanor is overall. Tonight, I thought we saw the most reserved and kind of commandeering or presidential version of Donald Trump yet. There were very, very few jokes made by Donald Trump. He refused to kind of allow himself to be baited into anything. And he had the feel, in my opinion, of someone who realizes that should he perform well in the upcoming Tuesday, March 15th, 2016 primaries, I believe there are 4 of them or maybe 5, something like that, he could essentially end this nomination fight. And it looks like he feels very comfortable about where he's at and his chances coming up on the 15th. So I noted that many media people said that it was Trump's best performance. I agree with that. He had good substance to his answers. He was forced to discuss some topics that he probably would have rather avoided, such as his comments on Islam, such as an altercation that took place in one of his recent rallies. However, he seemed unflappable. I thought he was able to turn questions and comments made for him and to him and about him kind of to his favor. An example of that would be when he was asked about the incident at the rally between supposedly one of his supporters and this protester. That became converted in Donald Trump's answer into a discussion and a thankfulness of police officers. Basically the point being, look, these are very large gatherings, and this is exactly the type of reason why we need to respect our police officers. And this is why we need police officers, so that when you have these massive gatherings, they can do their job and prevent incidents like that from occurring. I thought his closing statement was fantastic. He was basically asking for unity, asking for the party to kind of coalesce around the millions of voters who are the millions of excess voters, the millions of new voters who are coming in and largely supporting Donald Trump during this primary cycle. And he also said that it's important for the Republican Party to unify because of his belief that in the next presidential term or 1 term or 2 terms, there could be a change of up to 5 Supreme Court justices. The subtext here is, look, no matter how much the establishment might be against Donald Trump and maybe they feel concerned about what some might refer to as the trough of money and favoritism that goes on in Washington, D.C. Basically, what candidate Trump was saying was, we got to think bigger than that, and here's the reason why, because of this Supreme Court situation. So I thought Trump was his most presidential. I thought he was very cool under fire. He was little agitated or thrown off at all in this debate. And that was my overall sense of things. And I think that is a favorable impression and a favorable situation for him heading into Tuesday, March 15th. How did the other candidates do? John Kasich was there. He got a decent amount of attention, but as you might imagine, he did not get as much attention as Donald Trump or Ted Cruz were receiving. I thought Kasich was likable. He's a relatively likable person, I believe. He did well. I don't know if he really kind of furthered his case or kind of helped close the deal as he tries to win his the state of Ohio, where he was the governor of. And Marco Rubio, I thought Marco actually did pretty well in this debate. I don't know if it's enough for him to make up the ground that I think he needs to make up in order to win the state of Florida. But there were no insults. There was less of the kind of juvenile nature, or whatever you want to call it, that I think Marco got caught up in the last debate and in the subsequent period of time after that. I thought Marco did well. There were a lot of his supporters in the audience. He had some great lines as regards the Cuban community and his feeling about Cuba in general and what needs to go on with relations between Cuba and the United States. Finally, Ted Cruz. Look, Ted Cruz worked hard in this debate. Ted Cruz is, in general, he's a good debater. And I know early on when I reviewed one of the first debates of this primary season, I said that I really didn't like Ted's voice. And as I mentioned previously, there are different elements of the presentation, the substance and the demeanor and things like voice and how do you sound. Ted has refined his skills. I think he came off well tonight. He had some snappy one-liners. However, and this is just kind of part of where he's at in the race, I thought that he tried a little bit too hard tonight. Like he kind of had to take one too many shots at Donald Trump. And you understand that. Ted's fighting from behind. So that's what you have to do if you're in that situation. However, I personally felt that there was a tinge of desperateness in that. And in addition to that desperateness, I thought that there was one particular element of the debate that really fell flat for Ted Cruz. And that was later on in the debate when one of the moderators, Hugh Hewitt, basically presented Ted Cruz with the hypothetical scenario of, hey, Ted, let's say that you overtake Donald Trump at the GOP convention. In other words, it's a contested convention. Neither Trump nor Cruz had the necessary threshold of delegates, so we're going in rounds and voting here, and so Cruz ends up overtaking Donald Trump. And Hewitt's question to Cruz was something like, well, how would you go about kind of bringing in and unifying all of Trump's supporters? And then Ted Cruz made his pitch, so to speak. I understand the question. Given the scenario that has been playing out and the apparent resistance of the Republican establishment to Donald Trump and kind of the plurality of the base that has been supporting Donald Trump, it's not an unrealistic scenario. However, it didn't seem organic. Like, even though it's a question that kind of, I guess you would say, needs to be raised or can be raised in a reasonable hypothetical scenario, it didn't feel legitimate. Like, in other words, when you actually ponder it and you think, wow, would they actually try to do this? It doesn't pass the smell test, I guess you would say, in that situation. So even though I understand Hewitt may have felt he needed to ask that, and Ted Cruz had to kind of make his spiel to answer that query, it just felt flat. It felt forced, and it felt like that's not going to work. And so this was kind of one of the first times I really considered that scenario because it was brought up, and it just felt like, boy, that could be a real disaster if they actually try to do that. Because, look, Ted Cruz has a very dedicated base of support. However, that base of support doesn't feel like it doesn't have the breadth and kind of the millions of new voters coming into the party that Donald Trump has demonstrated so far. So it's kind of like I could discuss a situation where a Porsche is going to kind of go into a monster truck event and take out a Ford Dodge or a Dodge Ram truck. But when you actually think of it happening, it doesn't seem very realistic. And it almost seems like, man, why are they bringing this up? Or are you really thinking about trying to do this? And so I actually thought that instead of that being kind of a predictive programming, if you want to call that situation where it's like, okay, let's start people thinking about this because it could happen, it actually felt like, wow, you wouldn't really try to do that, would you? So I actually felt like that bit between Hugh Hewitt and Ted Cruz fell flat, and at least for me watching it, and it just doesn't embrace the nature of the race at this juncture in time. Now things can change. If Ted has a big day on Tuesday and maybe Donald Trump doesn't do as well, then you're looking at a different scenario. However, coming out of the last grouping of states, the last 4 states of which Donald Trump won 3 of them, it just doesn't seem to reflect reality or where you would think the energy would be or what the intelligent choice would be. So that was just my own reaction to that part of tonight's debate. So that's what I have to say. What do you think about what you saw tonight? Who do you think is going to do well on Tuesday, March 15th? My own feeling, and I know that this has been said in certain, obviously in other spheres of the internet and in the media, I believe that if Donald Trump wins Florida on Tuesday, and if he wins Ohio, both which are winner-take-all states, and additionally wins North Carolina, which is a very large state, has a good number of delegates, I think if that happens, and I think there's a good chance that it would and will happen, with maybe the most up-for-grabs states being Ohio, then I think Donald Trump would mathematically become almost inevitable at that point. So we will have to see what happens. We've got, 6 days until then, so we'll see. It's been a very interesting election season so far. Of course, John and I pay attention to this stuff a lot. We can't always make videos about it, but we try to keep our eyes on what is happening. So that's my feelings about tonight's debates. I am PFV, Paul F. Villarreal. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Thumbs up, thumbs down. We will talk to you again shortly. And if you are in one of the states voting on Tuesday, March 15th, we certainly encourage you to go out and vote for whomever you're voting for if you are a member of the Republican Party. I don't know if the Democrats are having votes on those dates. They probably are. So whoever you are, if you have the ability to go out and vote, certainly we recommend that you participate in the process and make your voice heard. Take care. We will talk to you again soon.